Hi, and we're live.
We
Uh,
are. Well,
yes.
sort of live.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, we're recording.
That's right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to DMs After Dark and our Meet the DM series, where we are kind of getting to know each of our dungeon masters slash game masters here at DMs After Dark. And today I have the great privilege of interviewing Christian.
Which means that Jess drew the short straw.
Oh no, I'm so excited, Christian, because so our first interview was Rainey and Troy, and they go way back. They know each other,
Yeah.
right? They're like partially semi related through marriage and things like that. But Christian, you and I really only got to know each other through DMs After Dark.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't think many people know that like some of us were brand new to kind of interacting with each
Yeah.
other on DMs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm excited to get to know more about you.
Oh boy. I hope I don't disappoint, as I usually do.
Okay. No, I this is you never disappoint, Christian. You always bring greatness
something
to our
okay.
The slight pause there.
Yeah, something.
All right. So
what are we drinking tonight? I think we need to tell everyone that we're drinking.
Yeah, that's right. You and we're going fancy tonight.
I have a tequila sunrise. Jess has a
nice
mojito.
Refreshing mojito. Yep. Loosen us up a little bit.
That's right. That's right. God knows I say crazy enough stuff when I'm sober. Who the hell knows what I'm going to say when I'm drunk?
Right? I know we're both just going to be like saying weird things by the end of this.
I'll probably just fall asleep, honestly.
Is that what you? Okay, I am also a very tired drunk. Like,
yeah, that's basically.
I drink a lot and then I just like am done, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed.
I just like I'm weird enough, like sober. I just fall asleep. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Christian is the old one in our group.
Thanks.
Let's just get that out of the way to start. But I am a very old soul. Like I am like just internally old. So I feel that just like sleeping. I'm just like I hit a point and I'm like, good night.
Yep. I've always been that way, though, even when I was young, which is when alcohol was invented, and that's when we started. And I was the first sleepy drunk. Yeah.
See, that's the thing, Christian. You always date yourself. Like that's why I always end up chiming in because like you're the one who dates yourself first.
Well, whatever. It's all fun. It's all fun and games.
Yeah. So speaking of that, why don't you tell us how old you were when you first started playing your first tabletop RPG?
Sure. I'll even tell you kind of how I got interested in them too. Yeah. So I'm a big comics nerd. And back in the like early 90s ish, when I was been about 12 ish, I really was when I first remember getting into and noticing like the advertisements for Dungeons and Dragons in comic books. Like Conan was a big thing. I really like Conan comics, but they were all in all of them, but Conan especially. And that's when I first became aware of them.
What kind of advertisements did they have back then?
Oh, I'll show you some. They were so cool. Some of them are really cool. Some of them like really sucked. And some of them, like when I say sucked, I mean they did not age well, like at all, because it was just like go rescue the princess and she'll reward you, sort of stuff. Real like cringy. But the one that wrote me in, and I still think it's a great picture, is the Redbox. So it was the Dungeons and Dragons Redbox. Anyone out there can just Google it. It's a Jeff Easley, I think, painting of like this fighter fighting like a red dragon, and it's just kind of captured my imagination. And I was like, oh, what is that? That's so cool. And I kind of knew it was some sort of game, but it wasn't until 8th grade that I met people that played. Okay. My friends Mark and Owen and another kid by the name of Chris, and then. I had to kind of weasel my way in there to play with them, and that's how I started playing. Yeah, and that was that so the game. Go ahead.
So they had already been playing for like a little.
Yeah, they had already been playing, and then I kind of glommed in there and inserted myself. And I think I was probably.
Do you remember what the first game was?
Yeah, it was stupid. I played. So I remember playing a dwarf once. But that was like during study hall and like whatever. And then I remember making a thief. So this is my first character. I've told this story before. I had a thief, and I was playing with my friend Eric, and it was just Tim and I. And he didn't even make it across the drawbridge to like get into the dungeon because he got killed by a Hydra like right away, which I still maintain is bad dungeon mastering, but whatever. So my first character like died right away.
Oh, I mean, life lesson.
Life
There's
lesson, be
lesson in
careful.
D&D.
Yeah, and that was the
Yeah.
last time I played a thief or a rogue, as they're called now. Till now, actually, I'm playing one in a campaign with Sarah. With our home group, I'm playing a rogue. I hadn't played one since then.
It's just a bad memory.
It was
You're
just
like,
a bad
they're just
memory,
too
bad
squishy.
taste. I'm out. Yep, too squishy. So the next character I had was a fighter, and that was I actually played him for about 10 years. Maybe almost, yeah, maybe 8 years. I mean, it seemed like a long time.
In the
But
same
let's
game?
say 8 years. Yeah, yep.
Holy crap, you guys ran a game for like,
8th grade
8 or
through
10?
College. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yep.
That's awesome.
He was only
so
11th level when it all was over.
well, okay. How often did you guys play?
Oh God, a lot. It depended. Because it was a lot. It was just me and my
You're
friend
only
Mark.
11th level? I mean, that's great.
Yeah, there's
Slow progression is great.
No, it wasn't entirely slow progression. I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Oh,
in a
okay.
minute,
Okay.
And why I hate undead. But yeah, we would play as much as we can, really. I mean, Rainey had this story about playing like 5 nights a week when he had this like kind of do nothing nighttime job, but we didn't play that much. But it was, we would play like, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like our group now. Kind of.
Yeah. And so yeah, and he had quite a character progression. He got married, he had kids. He started out as a nobody and wound up as pretty much the guy in charge of security for a whole city. And
Okay.
yeah.
So let me ask you this: what like kind of drew you in that first game, if you remember, and like kept you coming back for 8, 10 more years?
It really was the everybody says like, oh, you could do anything, right? In D&D, and that's kind of how you try to like rope people in, but that really was it. It was like just the idea, and I will give Mark credit, who was one of my first DMs, that he was a guy who would just pretty much be like, all right, what do you want to do? And he had his adventures, but he just rolled with it, and so I wasn't a murder hobo. All the time, but
I feel like it's hard your first time not to be.
Of course, you kind of are. You make stupid decisions.
You're trying to slaughter everybody,
right? You do, and you just make dumb decisions. But you can just kind of do anything, and that was what sold it to me, because it was just wandering around like doing stuff. That's what we did.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like people don't really understand until they're there and they're playing it, and it just clicks. Like you can really do anything, and you see how like
that's when it captures the imagination. And the character captures your imagination. It's like, I look back and I Toraf the fighter, I don't even think he was that great of a character really compared to like characters I play now, but he was some ways like, I was a dorky 12-year-old kid, and so he was just kind of like what I wanted to be, and
Gotcha.
So that was like, major power fantasy guy.
Nice.
But and then I eventually evolved into more well-rounded characters who make dick jokes.
Well-rounded. Yep, that's the word.
But the reason I just want to say, because I hinted earlier, the reason he was only 11th level was because old school Dungeons and Dragons, like first edition, second edition, undead were friggin' nasty, and so like a specter or a white or whatever, you would lose like 2 levels if you got hit.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
is that what you were playing for those 8, 10 years? Like
we played.
D&D?
Toraf was a basic Dungeons and Dragons character. Yep.
Okay.
And then I DM'd when I started DMing. I DM'd second edition. That's when I started. That was like the cutting edge of D&D when I started.
Okay.
Second
Wait.
edition.
So tell us about that. What made you like decide to pick up the reins to DM?
Because I was, I think like when it first clicked with me, when games first clicked, you got this feeling of like if you ever read the book, Stephen King wrote a book on writing. And he says in the book, like with the first short story he wrote when he was a little kid, like he gave it to his mom and she read it and she said it was like really good and she gave him a quarter, and that was the first time he ever got paid for a story. But he said something that resonated with me for role-playing games, which was he felt like he had someone had like led him into this house with all these rooms, and there were way too many rooms for you to ever open in your lifetime, but you could like explore any room you wanted. Right. And you could kind of go anywhere. And I remember reading that and thinking like, I feel exactly that same way about games, because that was a feeling I had. Like, every game to me, Rainey talked in his interview a lot, and I know him really well, about like mechanics and how he would like read and break down the mechanics and get into that stuff. Yeah. And I'll do that to a degree, But what draws me to a game is an essence of the mechanics. It has to capture my imagination. But a lot of things capture my imagination, which is why I have so many games, more than I'll ever play in my lifetime.
So what is it about it like that captures your
I
imagination?
don't know.
Like
It's just
setting,
like,
or
I
is
am
it
a
like
daydreamy sort of
character?
person who lives in my own world. And so it's just, yeah, it's just, the setting, the characters and what they might do in that setting, the artwork. A lot of times I'll just be like, oh, that's a cool cover. What's this about? And, then you read and you're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. It's like a whatever. And nowadays for me, it's more like what you can take it and do with it. Like how much does it allow you to insert of your own imagination into it? Like I'm a big fan. I talk a lot about Kevin Crawford, who created like Stars Without Number and Worlds Without Number now, where he just gives you tools to be like, go and make up your own stuff. And that's
like the
great.
Framework, right? To
Yeah,
add
just
your
a framework to
imagination
add your own
Yeah.
imagination to. And I love that. I think it's, very important to not lose that. It's a muscle. You have to exercise it. And if you don't lose it, I think it keeps you young. I'm hoping it does because I'm old as shit and I'm going to die soon. So
Hey, I mean, you're still playing games. That's
right.
what matters, right?
I'm more immature than everyone else. I might be older, but I'm immature.
I don't know. I think some of us have a run for your money. Well, then again, you might make the most. No, I don't know actually.
I don't think I'd make the most actual
Usually
dick
don't.
jokes, but I might make
think you do.
the worst ones.
You've got some really good clutch one-liners
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you slip in there for sure.
That's right.
For sure. So do you remember what you did for your first game
To run?
that you ran? Yeah.
Oh God, I was so
edition.
awful. So
Yeah.
I got the second edition books because I wanted to be like the cool kid with the new stuff. And it wasn't even like really new when I started because it was pretty close to third edition happening anyway. But I made my own campaign, right? Because I know what I'm doing. I can make up my own campaign world. Oh God, it was so awful. It was so awful, and just like ripped off, like blatantly ripped off, like Conan comics, and just,
I mean, that's kind of what you do.
it's basically what you do when you start it. It was just abysmal, And what happened, a lot of the group as time went on kind of fell off. So it really wound up being just Mark and myself playing. So we play a lot of the games that I played were really just like one-on-one. Yeah. And and we would play a lot of like, all the NPCs and stuff you would play, which is probably why I've gotten so good at voices over the years because everyone had to have a different voice and stuff. But yeah, what we would do is like he would run for a while, then we would get to like a story break, then I would pick up and run my own world. And he had like a half elf. He made it was such a murder hobo. It was like a nightmare character, like an edgelord fighter wizard elf guy.
I mean, hey, at least one-on-one, they're not stealing the glory from other people.
Right. But he was
slaughtering everything.
It was fun. It was. We had a lot of fun, but I learned a lot. I definitely did. But I look back, like even when I was doing it, I remember not really liking DMing that much when I started because it was a lot to keep track of. Yeah, it was a lot to keep track of and stuff. And it was hard. DMing is hard.
For sure.
Yeah, it really is. And keeping up with the people, what the people do, and I remember like certain things would click, and I'd always be surprised at like the characters that people picked up on and loved, and the ones that you thought are so cool and people don't like, and But eventually you learn like you just throw things out there, and you're like, okay, they like this guy, we're gonna go with this guy then, and we're gonna have him do stuff. And the biggest thing I learned early on when I started was just building on what had been done.
What do you mean?
So what I mean is like a lot of my first adventures were like, so and so the wizard comes and does something and you got to stop him, or the orcs come here and whatever, and well, who were the orcs? Where were they? They were in the mountains. How come I never heard of them before? And so it's like, things don't make sense if they just pop up out of nowhere, And so what I learned, after we played for a while, characters were probably about third or fourth level, was keeping a really good, like not detailed notes, but just having a really good idea of like what the players had done and just building on that. And just being like, okay, so they cleared out this ruin, that I randomly stuck in. So the goblins weren't in there now. So maybe we'll stick something else in there. And then, that place still remains like a place that's part of the campaign world, but now something else has kind of taken it over because it makes sense it would, because it's a lair that's vacant. So now something else is there. They might have to go back and deal with it, or it might cause other trouble, or maybe it's something maybe something good comes in there, and now they have an ally maybe in the area, like a good dragon or something. But there's something their actions had, so the players and the characters' actions had an effect on the world. And then they also dealt with the consequences of their effect on their world.
Yeah. I think that's one of that
was the first
things
things
that I love.
Yeah, and that really
it's a living, breathing
once
thing.
that clicked for me, DMing became a lot easier, because then it was just like, okay, well, what have they done? Let's build off that. And you gain the confidence to just kind of fly with things a lot more then, because it does. You just kind of react to what players do.
So was your first game the longest that you guys had ever played or ran?
I played that one for a while. I gave up on my world. Mark ran his like all through. We started in 8th grade, and when he moved away, right, it was like 20 when he moved away. So however long that is. And then we had a couple of games when he came back into town or whatever. But I gave up on that one when the character's like 8th level or so. But I kind of also Monte hauled that one. I made a mistake there, and I gave out way too much treasure and stuff. That was another mistake I did. But then I found something, sometimes like it takes a good setting to like also like capture your imagination.
Yeah.
And I TSR released Al Qadim, which is like an Arabian fantasy setting. Okay. Right? That's also kind of held up pretty good. For between now and then. It's part of the Forgotten Realms now. They kind of just bolted it on to the rest of the world. Yeah. And Wolfgang Bauer and some other really good game designers are still out there and really active. Wolfgang Bauer works out with Kobold Press, were the people who developed it. And they had a lot of good like adventure paths. Kind of like really like the precursor of like the Pathfinder adventure paths, And I had one that I really liked, which I cannot remember the name of right now, but it was in the box called Ruined Cities. And it was like it was their version of almost like not quite fantasy India, but sort of like a jungle area where all these like ruins and stuff, like old gods and that sort of stuff that I love.
Yeah.
And it was the plot was like pretty much boilerplate, like stop this evil wizard who's coming back, right?
Classic, classic.
But like for me, it was just like, ooh, I have a whole thing to run on. It was like 1st to like 14th level,
Wow, and so you guys have done pretty much homebrew that.
Yeah, before that. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'll just run this. And I added my own stuff in between there, and I used some other stuff from some of their other books, including this one great one called Cities of Bone, where they had this is still one of my favorite adventures, because it's the party is like wandering around. They stumble on this city, and it was a ruined city, and 2 necromancers have taken it over, like a married pair of necromancers, and like raised the whole city. So it's like a city of the dead, but they wind up as guests there.
Okay.
Because of the hospitality rules that they have in this culture, where you you have to receive a guest and take care of them. So even though these people necromancers
so it's
are
like a lawful evil situation.
Yeah, so they're evil, but you're their guests. And then what comes out is like the wife is sick of the husband and she wants to get rid of him. And then there's like a whole subplot with like a guy who was supposed to become a lich, but he didn't. He kind of screwed it up. But then when they raised the whole city, he kind of came back as like half a lich, but he's sort of smart enough. He's smart enough that he wants like everybody in the city to just like go back and like, be at peace. And so like this whole plot, when you wind up fighting like, the evil necromancer at the end, and, the wife just takes the stuff and leaves and everybody goes back. And they found, which I thought was really cool, is this is why I like it. They use this sword that's like a cursed sword. It's like a 9 lives stealer. And it's one of those things where you have to have a choice, because it's not a good thing. It's like an evil weapon, but you have to use it to defeat him. So you're making like a devil's bargain to use it. And so I put that one in. But that went from 1st all the way up to, I think they were like 15th level.
And did you guys play through that the whole thing?
Yeah, we played through the whole thing. Nice. And we had all sorts of great, completely stupid melodramatic stuff now. Like finding long lost twin brothers and stuff like that. But, it was fun.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a mix of the sweet stuff.
Good memories. Yeah.
Everything else. Yeah.
Good memories. Yeah.
So what made you move away from, not that you ever really moved away from D&D, but how did you discover kind of other games outside of?
I always just was, I'm not gonna actually take that back. I'm not gonna say I always was interested in them. For a long time, I was just a D&D fanboy, and then I like third edition. I didn't get to play third edition as much as I wanted to. I just did some in college, and I just I didn't have a group for a long time, and I was just kind of became more of a hobby. Became more of like reading and collecting than it was actually playing. Especially
Where
once you
the
graduate
hoarding
college.
began.
Yeah, that's where the hoarding began. And, especially once you like graduate college, and it's hard. And I moved out of the area where I grew up. So it was it's hard to find people
Yeah,
anyway,
for sure.
excuse me, as an adult to be
An
friends with.
adult.
But even beyond that, to find, niche hobby people
Hmm.
while you're, starting a family, starting a career and all that stuff is kind of hard. So I became like a hoarder. That's when I
Hmm.
became a hoarder.
Hmm.
And in Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu is probably the first game outside of D&D that I became really interested in. I just thought it was amazing because, excuse me, I really like the idea that, you play these normal people,
Mm. Yeah.
and it's
It's like the complete
it's
opposite of
such a
D&D.
departure from D&D. But I will say that when, as a kid, we played other games though. I was still
Oh yeah.
D&D was always my main one, but we played. Matter of fact, I have a good DMing memory of playing running a different game actually too. But we played Star Wars. I was the one who found the Star Wars books originally, and so I was the first one that ran it for everyone. And I remember whatever running the adventure was. I don't remember what the adventure was, but they were being attacked by an AT-AT walker, and the four-legged one,
Oh,
right?
okay, okay. Gotcha.
And I think it's the four-legged one. Someone will probably tell me I'm wrong, but whatever. and and one of the characters was playing a Jedi, of course, because everybody needs to be Luke. And he was like, "Well, can I just try to like cut its leg off with my lightsaber?" And there's no rules in the book for that or anything. So I'm like, "Whatever, sure." And so I let them just like demolish
Give it a
this thing,
try.
right? And
Uh-huh.
I was just like, roll and see what happens. And we went with it, and they all had like such a great time. And I think that was one of the first times I remember that was in between me running my kind of aborted second edition campaign and Al-Qadim, and that was when I had discovered like the joy that you can have in DMing, which is really like being a fan of the players and having them have
Mhm.
fun and do cool stuff.
Mhm.
That was a great moment. I remember. Just made me think of it. Yeah, and then I wound up trading the Star Wars books to my friend Mike because his mom didn't want him to have one of the Al-Qadim box sets because it had a rather scantily clad woman on the cover.
Ah.
So I
Ah.
made out with the deal. I traded him the Star Wars books for that, and
Uh-huh.
that's how I got the Al-Qadim stuff.
Ah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So out of everything you've run so far, like what are your favorite, I guess, systems and games that you've run or you found or even read? Maybe not even that you've run.
Still Call of Cthulhu.
Okay.
I've written for it now and been published, so I guess I have to shout out Stygian Fox.
Yeah.
So certainly I like them because they think enough of my ideas to publish them, so that's cool. And it's just a fun game, but so I will say that I enjoy the history aspect of that game a lot too because I'm a history nerd. So when it's set in the real world, but just a tweak of like strangeness,
Mhm.
that's fun for me because then I can be like, oh, we're gonna set this in in the 1920s. Well, what was going on in the 1920s? Oh, that sucks. We're gonna leave that part out, but the rest of the 1920s is cool, and so you can use. I like playing in history. It's fun when it's your playground.
Yeah, I
So
remember
Call of
you doing a
Cthulhu.
lot of research for
I,
like the
yeah.
adventures that you've
Yep.
run.
Yep. Yep. And I like that stuff. I really like that stuff. But also, I would say Mutants and Masterminds. I haven't had a chance to run for you guys yet. I've run that for my son extensively, and it's crunchy. It's a crunchy superhero system, but it's fun because it lets you. It really. I'm going to get into game design here, but you have like your rules light systems and you have your crunchy systems, right?
Yeah.
And so I've run Fate superheroes, and that's really rules light, and it's kind of just like everything you can say like I want to be Iceman. So just by saying you're Iceman, it's assumed you have all the other Iceman type powers. You can freeze stuff. You can do icy stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
But if
Yeah.
you're going to make a character if you're going to make that character in Mutants and Masterminds, you really have to go through and define it a lot more. you know?
Okay.
And so you can say like, I can freeze, but I can freeze, say, I can create up to 4 tons of ice, or I can
Okay.
lift this much, or I can run this fast, or whatever,
Okay.
And I like that because it became more interesting to me in gameplay. Like when I ran Fate in the superhero game we ran for Sarah and our friends, you know, it was just kind of a matter of like, well, who's the strongest guy there is, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all very ill defined. It was still fun. We had a great time, but I liked that aspect of it because then you have like more tactical elements within that game.
I
So I
gotcha.
really like Mutant Masterminds because it was one of the first superhero games I've ever seen where you can really sit down. If once you understand it, it has a steep learning curve to learn how to make a character, but once you know that, the game is easy to run. And you can legitimately, like a lot of games say, you can make any sort of character you want, but that's not true. You
Oh,
can
for sure.
absolutely make any sort of character you want in that game, whatever you want. So I
And I
really
like,
am a fan of that. Yeah.
yeah, and I like that idea that you were talking about for limitations, right? Because like it's never any fun when you're playing a long game and you're just killing everything easily. You know what I mean? Like you need to have those limitations and obstacles that maybe you can't always face or have to
Yeah.
think
And
through.
the amazing thing about that game, to get back to it, is that they you can have like, there are builds out there for Batman and Superman, right? And they're like two, like Batman's a normal dude, Superman's practically a god. They're on the same team, right? And the game is built in a way that it works. It still
And
works
they're
because
kind of equal.
yeah, more or less. Yeah,
Okay.
Batman's like a power level 12 character. Superman's power level 16 or so, depending on some of the
Okay.
builds I made. They're unofficial, but I mean, yeah, Superman can do a lot of shit, but Batman's smarter. He's got a lot of more resources. He's got a lot more stuff.
Huh. Yep.
Superman just goes and punches things. I'm not
I'm a
really a
huge
fan of
Batman fan.
Superman.
I
Yeah,
love
me too.
Batman.
Did you
So
see
like I
the
was
Batman?
like, yeah.
Actually, we'll talk after.
Yeah, we'll
off
talk
this,
later.
but yeah, yeah,
I was just about to go into that, but no.
yeah.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
So the other question I had was, do you remember like a really big or your biggest DM mistake?
Yeah, I was thinking about this
Oh
today
yeah.
actually because I heard Rainey
Okay,
answer.
perfect.
Mine isn't quite as Rainey had this tragic story where he like killed a character.
Oof.
Mine was just really like, so I had this scene set up within my crappy homebrew world, and the king of the land had like died, right? And so the way that they did this, when they chose a new king, it wasn't through like secession or war or anything. They had this like magic stone that people would stand
Nice.
on, and the stone would like emit a sound to say like this is the chosen king, right?
Love it.
But I
Okay.
hadn't thought of what the sound was. And I was just like, that's a detail. It'll like kind of like take care of itself. And then there was like that moment, and I couldn't think of the sound, and I just made like this stupid beeping noise, and so it became like almost like the Walmart like sliding door that's like ding, like opens. And so like that what was a cool moment, or could have been a cool moment, just deservedly got made fun of for years and years and years.
I mean, that's
after.
great. That's sometimes
Yeah.
like the best moment, right? It's
Yeah.
iconic at least through.
It was just that sucked. I wish I would have
Nice.
thought of a better sound.
Nice. I bet it's fine. I bet your players loved it though.
Oh yeah, I still hear about it. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to get into is that your game actually was the first game for DMs After Dark that
That's
started
right.
everything.
Mhm.
So I did you want to talk a little bit about the first game and kind of how you feel about it evolving to where we are now?
Yeah, and I also want to say, kind of tell you a good story about a really good DM. It's probably one of my better DMing experiences too. Was the first time I ran that game, and I'll get into why in a minute. But DMs After Dark really came about at the January of 2021 when really listen, we were still kind of like coming at it, still sort of semi in COVID, kind of coming out of it, whatever. We've been playing, all of us had known each other sort of through the library and through things, but not that well. And I just had a Call of Cthulhu scenario my friend had written, actually. Chiton Proctor wrote The Dark Forest. And I was like, hey, I kind of just want to play through, run as much of my stuff as I can. And I had reached out to Amber, and I had said, can we get people who are interested, and we'll just set this up and we'll run it. And when it's done, but let's just run it. And I had no plans beyond that whatsoever. And so we ran this thing that was like, it lasted 4 sessions, and we had a really good time.
That's crazy to me that
Yeah.
you just like asked for volunteers and we all happen to be
Yeah.
DMs.
Yep. That's, yeah. I mean, I had played with all of you before. I think with the
Like
exception
once.
of Rainy, I hadn't played with. You I'd played with a couple
Okay.
times at like
Yep.
the one shots at the library.
Hmm.
Same thing with Amber. Sarah, I was in a game with for a year because that was like my re-entry to gaming was through the library.
Yeah.
I didn't have a group before that.
Yeah.
But I ran it, and the first night I ran it, this is the story I want to tell. I know you know this story somewhat, but it was a really horrible day for me. Like one of the most, not the most horrible days of my life, but a horrible, horrible day where I had was basically found out I was leaving my job. I didn't really know where I was landing, and I almost was like, maybe I'll cancel.
Yeah.
I
You
was
had
like,
already committed to
yeah,
like
but I had
running
already
this.
committed to run for everyone,
Yep.
and so I was like, fuck it, we're gonna do it anyway. And it wound up being we all had a really great time. That's where like the Wilco joke came from, where I don't remember the character's name right now, but not really understanding what Wilco meant, and just like just saying Wilco, and just whatever mental state I was in, I was able to just kind of like really just cut loose and run the game, and everybody had a
Yeah.
really good time.
You did
And
great. I literally had no
I
idea
had a
that you were
fantastic time because for that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever that we played, like I forgot all about it. So it was one of my better DMing experiences was that. So yeah,
and I
made
love
my
that
troubles
story.
go away. Yep. But after that, so that was the beginning of DMs After Dark, and then after that, I didn't. I was like, all right, great guys, thanks. And I don't remember who bought it up. I don't know if it was Rainy or because I don't who ran the second game. It was
It
Rainy. It
was
was
Rainy.
Blades in the
Rainy
Dark.
did Blades in the
Yeah,
Dark.
and he
Yeah.
was just like, hey, do you want to try Blades in the Dark? And we're like, okay, cool. And then it evolved into this. Sarah was like, well, I want to do Good Society. And so it just became this thing of like, okay, we'll just rotate games. And everybody will
Yeah.
get a
Because we
chance
all
to
had a
play one.
great time.
Yeah, we did. It was everything just clicked. And, I am very grateful that we all found each other to play with because it's a lot of people don't have what we have. Of like, we
I
have a
completely
very
agree.
good group of people to play with, and we're lucky with that. Yeah. And then it was over the summer when I found like an internship sort of thing online, a gaming sort of thing to teach you how to like stream or whatever. And I got somehow they found me and I got involved and I got hooked up with a guy doing a podcast. And that's when I was like, hey guys, we should just like do this. Why not? It would be fun. And it has been. It's
Wait,
been
so
really fun.
oh, you're the one who pushed us into
Yep.
streaming too.
I was just like,
I
hey, do you
didn't
want to
even
try
remember that.
this? I think it would be
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Okay. And here we are now, still doing it.
Yep. It's been a year now, over a year now.
What are you loving so far? Like, what do you feel like you're getting or that you love so far from DMs After Dark?
The thing I love about everyone that we play with is that nobody's really selfish. And so we don't have, the prima donna players or anything like that. Everybody's willing to be the butt of a joke or step back and be in the background to allow other people to have their moments, which I think is really, really important at a table. Everybody's got to get what they want out of the game, And I think that we always somehow unspokenly arrive at everybody getting what they wanted or needed out of the game. I don't think everybody ever feels like a loser. I hope not, when we play. Because I think you look back and I watch the games that we've run and I'm like, wow, that's everybody had their moments, every character had their conclusion, everything's worked out well. I mean, some are better than others, obviously, or whatever. But I really think that that's what's special about us. As far as I'm
I
concerned.
honestly don't know how it happens, but
Yeah,
it does
and it
pretty
really
much
does.
every
It just
game.
all comes together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Rainey's
all
really good
very
at that.
about
Rainey's
that.
very, very good at that. But when he DMs, but other people are too. Other people are very good at it. Everybody has their strengths, and that's the thing too. Is I think I've become much better at running games just because I've learned so much from everybody else.
Oh my God, that was going to be one of my questions. What is like one thing or maybe the best thing that you learned from another DM on DMs After Dark so far? I know it's a put you on the spot question.
It's a hard question, but I know the answer.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm just trying to phrase it correctly. Everybody does there are things that everybody does that I admire very much. So I'm gonna take that through first. Like I admire Troy very much in that Troy can take, these descriptions of things and just like they're poetic, or they're just beautiful. and you're just like, wow, you get swept away in that. And sometimes I feel like, oh, it's like a church, church. I feel like sometimes I gloss over that stuff. But Troy is really wonderful at that. Rainey is wonderful at just going along with like whatever your stupid idea is and feeding into it, and he's a great improv DM. And I really admire that. Same thing with you. I think you don't give yourself enough credit, but you're very good. That Christmas one shot was chaos, and you handled it very well. A freaking Canadian toy running around and a picture of Nicolas Cage, and you did a really good job with it. Yeah, so you handled that really well. And Sarah too. Sarah ran Good Society, and Sarah's very good at just like stepping back.
Oh my
and
goodness,
letting
Christian! I asked you to pick one.
Having their moment.
Pick
I'm getting there. I'm
to,
getting there.
Okay.
But the person that absolutely, and we haven't had a wrong form game run by her yet, but like Bluebeard's Bride blew me out of the fucking water. Like absolutely, like I had like a hard time after that game, And the thing about it that really like impressed me about Amber was she really just put like everything out there. Like her whole heart and soul was in that. And since then, I've always like that's the way to play. That's the way to DM, and I've done that. I've endeavored to do that in my games. I mean, it's hard to like, how do you put your heart and soul into a fucking, Canadian toy? But my more serious characters, I've tried to, endeavor to be as raw, I guess is the word, as I possibly could. And to just run with, whatever your weirdness is, right, or whatever your story is, put that in the game. And I hope that I can do that with Invisible Sun, because that's going to be my first long game actually that I've run for the group. So I'm trying really hard. Yeah, I've got some weird ideas. So.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. So what is like a dream game or dream scenario that either you would love to run someday on DMs After Dark, or just sometime in your
so
life?
Like a specific game or scenario, or like a scenario in which we're playing, like
anything, just something that you would like just hope to DM someday.
Hope to DM. I don't know if I could run it in DMs After Dark, but I would really, really love to run Glorantha, like a RuneQuest campaign. I've recently become enamored with RuneQuest, and it's really made me love fantasy again. Because like I never stopped loving D&D, but like D&D is D&D.
After you've played it,
you get tired. Like you said that too. You get like fatigued of like that sort of fantasy. And I got a couple of the RuneQuest books, and that led me to buy like the hardcovers and everything, because I was just like, wow, this is really cool. RuneQuest is a game put out by Chaosium, and the world actually, believe it or not, predates D&D. The actual fantasy world that it takes place in, but it was written by a guy, Greg Stafford. And added to, obviously, as years by other authors. But the thing that captured me the most about it was that it's not your kitchen sink medieval fantasy with like, the typical stuff you would expect, like slapped on. It's so different, and because it's so different, it's very vibrant. And he had an advanced degree in, I think, anthropology or mythology, and he put that to use when he made this world. So like, the world itself is like just the lodgings floated in the ocean, and the ocean is the element of water, and the sun literally like rises and sets. All like the myths that you read were like, well, this is how the world is on the back of a giant turtle, or whatever. That shit's real in Glorantha. Like, you don't get sick because you catch a disease. You get sick because a disease spirit got you. And so like all that stuff is real. It's not a joke, or it's not just like, oh, that's what people think, but it's really this. No, it's real. That's what happens. And if you don't do this, no, the sun's not coming up tomorrow. You have to do this ritual, or it's not going to come up.
Such a crazy, chaotic world.
It's fucking insane. And the world itself is like the myths and the cultures are very vibrant because of that. And it's also not like these people are, medieval English. These people are the medieval, Russians. You don't have that feeling. Because every culture feels different. And you can look at them and be like, okay, these people are kind of like the Babylonians, I think. And these people are kind of like, whatever. But they're not an exact match or an exact ripoff. They're different. And so it really just, like, for example, dwarves are basically immortal as long as they follow their religion.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but they don't really have
a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but they don't really, right? But they
A
don't
lot of
really have
pressure.
they don't really have their like personalities. They're more tied to like the different metals. So they're like iron dwarves and like copper dwarves or whatever. And elves are just basically like trees. Like they're made out of plants. They're just like intelligent
Okay.
plants, and like they're tied to their
Okay.
forests. And if their forest, like think of like dryads, right? They're like really tied to
Yeah.
their forest.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
something happens to their forest, like they're just like toast. So there's like a really like they took like the old more rote fantasy concepts and also played a lot with them. Dragons will be like 13 miles long. You hope to God one never wakes up. Yeah, it's really cool, and it really just took fantasy and was just like boom, like made it big again. And that's the cool thing
Yeah.
about fantasy. It captured my imagination, right? What did I say at the beginning of this? Something has to capture my imagination for me to love it, and it really did that for me again. So I would love to run a RuneQuest campaign. I don't know if a one shot would do it justice.
No, it sounds like there's a lot
Yeah,
to
there's just
explore
so
there.
much. So I would love to run that one day. As far as like a shorter game, I don't know. There's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many I
Yeah.
like.
There's so many out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hopefully what we're doing here. It's just
Yeah.
to find
Yeah.
more,
And
play more.
sometimes like I pick up a game and I'm like, I don't know about this, and then we run it and it's great. So,
Yeah.
Grand
Yeah.
Club, like I thought was a great idea when we were in Grandma Club, and I didn't know how it was gonna go. But it
was
wound up-
interesting. It was
oh
great.
God, it was not what the writers intended, I'm sure.
I feel like that's true of all of the games that we play. I feel like that's true to every single
pretty
game.
much. I think we did a good job with Our God Is Dead. I think we stuck right along the tracks. But
Good Society also is pretty like, hopefully on par. I hope.
I always promise Sarah that I won't derail that.
Aw. She gets the inside saved. Right. So I think I have two more questions, but is there anything else that you feel like?
I think you're doing a good
wanna
job.
cover?
Continue. No.
Okay. So I guess my second to last question is, what is your go-to advice as a DM?
Don't be afraid to DM. Like, just do it. Right. We have some players in our home game where we played Our God Is Dead, and they were like, they're continually, I'm not going to call them out, but you can tell they don't really want to like DM, because they're afraid of like, what will happen if I DM? Oh my God, who cares? Like, you'll make mistakes. That's what happened, but it'll be fine. And I go back to one of the things I said about Our God Is Dead. It's a great game to pick up if you want to dip your toe in, because it's a GM-less game and everybody's going to be contributing. So you get a taste of what it's like to throw those ideas in the pot, So don't be afraid to try it would be my best advice to anyone. Although you might wind up with, thousands of games. So
A hoarder, a problem, an addiction.
Right. You might wind up with a game buying addiction.
Yeah.
But it's better than other addictions you could have.
That's very true. That's very true. And my last question, just because I love this question off the list that you had sent to me for the random ones, is what is your favorite curse word and why?
The old Inside the Actor Studio.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Oh, motherfucker.
Just motherfucker. It just feels good to say it. It's just because your basic fuck is just like, you could say fuck this, fuck that. It's a verb, it's a noun, it's whatever you want. But when you say motherfucker, something really happened.
Yeah, you're serious.
Yep.
Yeah, it's intense. All right. Well, thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
Hopefully people got to know you better. I know I got to know you a
Yeah.
little bit better.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope.
Yeah.
I'm not a mystery.
I know. And, the more you watch us, the more you'll see a lot of our inside characters kind of come out and show through. Oh, you know what I didn't get to ask you is what kind of characters do you like to play or like love to play? You kind of touched upon it a little bit of kind of putting your heart and soul into characters.
Yeah. It's interesting because if I look back, like, I play a lot of characters who are assholes. I really do.
I didn't even get to ask you the asshole question.
I know you didn't. But
I was being nice.
I didn't I don't set out to do that, but I think that characters who challenge the other characters in the party make for a good story and are fun.
Yeah, there's good conflict.
Right,
Spicy.
there's conflict and it's spicy and it's fun, and I'll tell a funny story from our home game where I play pretty much, I would say, probably the quintessential Christian character, because it's Ivar is a dwarf. He's a rogue. He's a rogue phantom subclass. So that's the one at Tasha's where you get like the ghosts of the dead like talk to you and stuff. And with Ivar, the way the way we've made that work is it's his disapproving ancestors who come back and are like, "What are you doing, Ivar? Why, we were honorable warriors. You're like a fucking thief. Look at you. What are you doing?" And he fights with them because Ivar is basically like Joe Pesci from Goodfellas if he was a dwarven thief. And so we just had this great scene in our game where we've been traveling through the wilderness for a while, and we found like this kind of like secret hideaway place where one of the characters, that's like her home, and you have to go through like the mist to get there. It's like magical, right? And so before we go, and she's like, "Ivar, this is my home. People respect me here, and don't steal anything." And he had this big like 30-minute argument with her of like, "Why'd you say that? Like, you think I'm a thief?" "No, I don't really." "Yes, you think I'm a thief because you said it. If you didn't think I was a thief, you wouldn't have said it because it would have been unspoken." And this whole, like, he had this whole meltdown and it was hysterical. But afterwards we were just kind of joking around and she was like, "Well, V really didn't think you was going to steal." And I was like, "Oh no, he totally would have." That was all gaslighting. He actually is an asshole. He totally would have stole. Yeah. Yep. He was just making a big deal. But I don't know. Those characters are fun to me.
I
those
love
characters
them too.
are
I
fun
agree.
to him. Remington, it was very similar, I think, in a lot of regards to the character I played in the other version of Good Society we played when I played Captain Wentworth, where they're kind of like these guys that
I
came.
didn't really find Remington
A little bit. I mean, as a person, he
really?
wasn't. But when you think about what they did to the narrative, he arrived in town. He had been out. There were rumors swirling about him. He made a big splash kind of in his entry. I don't know. I think when I go wholesome, I think I tend to do that. I don't do that intentionally. Now, my other character in a home game, in my druid, is the exact opposite of any Christian character. He's just like this really quiet, like he's like the conscious of the party, and he's very quiet. He's just like this super quiet, like nerd guy.
Aw. I can't imagine, you playing that.
He doesn't talk much. He just, and when he does, he basically like makes fun of the tieflings in the party because they not because they deserve it. Trust me, they cause a lot of problems. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. All right, super last actual final question.
Sure.
What is your most epic favorite DM moment that you've ever had?
DM moment? All right. Shit. I'm going to call Sarah out. Okay. So I was running a Call of Cthulhu campaign for Sarah and her friends. This is our home group. And it was a Hudson and Rand game, which is basically like Sherlock Holmes, but you're dealing with Cthulhu mysteries in London in the 1890s. It is like my jam. Like Victorian London, I love.
Gotcha.
So I was running one of the best experiences I've ever had running like a written scenario. It was this one. It was The Curse. Oh God, I can't think of it right now. It was an excellent one. It's out of a book called Sacraments of Evil. The Masterwork of Nicholas Forby. That's the name of it. It's a fantastic scenario about this like family, and they're cursed because there's a statue. And the long story short, like granddad was a sculptor, and he had this other painter friend that would come and hang around with him but because he was a sculptor, he was working with lead and he got sick. Okay. He got like severe lead poisoning.
Yeah.
And the painter friend started having an affair with his wife. And he found out about that, and he cast the painter in a statue, like killed him, cast him in a statue, and like put him on the front lawn, right? And the statue was called the statue was called Icarus Fallen. It was like Icarus on the ground, like on the front lawn, right? And so the family curse after that was that every 30 years or whatever, there'd be like a really hot summer because that was like the time frame when the statue was cursed, and the kids who weren't really his, they would start having headaches and go crazy, and the statue would come back to life and kill them. And so, they go out to the countryside and it was right outside of London, and they're standing there and they're solving the mystery. And I had this great scene to finish off a session where they were like looking at the statue, and they had sort of had like all the clues, but they weren't quite there yet, but they were going to get there next session. So I just had like the statue's like eye open, and it started coming to life, and that's where we cut, and they were just like, shit. And so that was a great cliffhanger. But the better DM moment was that, this is why I was really proud of them. We come back and we play, and all week I'm like, these people are going to get killed because this is Call of Cthulhu. They came out to this as guests, so they don't have weapons, They didn't bring their shotguns or anything like that. And this is like a living bronze statue. They're just gonna like tear this house apart to try to kill, the owner.
The children, yeah.
And I'm like, what are they gonna do? And Sarah talks to the statue, just talks to it. I know you're sad, but and this is what Sarah does in games anyway.
Yeah, this is what.
Right.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds so Sarah.
And I'm like, well, let me look at the stats. And it was intelligent enough to understand. And I'm like, well, shit, that's a great idea. And so they solved the mystery of the statue. They convinced it to go and sit in the ice house where the bronze would like freeze enough for it to crack and his skeleton would come out. They could like chip him out. And so he got his rest. And that's how they broke the family curse. And it was just a great ending because like, the scenario assumes like they're going to have to fight the statue or like get the guy to safety or whatever. And she came up with like this original solution, and it was awesome. Everybody had a great time. I was overjoyed because I thought they were all going to get killed, and it was really awesome. That's my best one.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the golden things about being a DM is being able to set other people up for just these really cool moments and ideas. That's awesome.
Yep. We talk about that a lot. That game was really fun. Yeah.
All right, great. I mean, now I don't know how to end these things, but do you know how the other ones end it?
No.
Thanks for watching, you guys.
Thanks for learning more about us.
Yes, this is Christian, one of our many GMs for DMs After Dark, and he is going to be running our next long form game for Invisible Sun. So we are very excited for that. Invisible Sun is a weird, fantastical game.
Yeah, weird, surreal fantasy, I guess is what you would call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird.
All right. So
like us and follow us at all the places. And this will be out on Monday. And for the next succeeding 6 weeks, we'll have one hopefully every Monday morning, as long as schedule allows. I'll be interviewing Sarah. I know Amber will be interviewing you. So that's interesting because you guys have known each other forever.
Yep.
And so it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.